Good evening, and welcome to the September 12th regular meeting of the Governing Board of Pasadena City College. Will the Board of Trustees, Pasadena Area Community College District, come to order? Ms. Barnard, would you please do the roll?
Absolutely. Dr. Anthony Fellow.
Here.
Mr. James Osterling.
Here.
Mr. Hoyt Hillsman.
Here.
Ms. Belinda Brown.
Here.
Ms. Sandra Chula.
Here.
Mr. John Martin.
Here.
Ms. Linda Waugh.
Here.
Ms. Sinid Hatrad.
Thank you. In closed session this evening, we'll be taking up a number of items under Government Code 54957, including evaluation of Superintendent President search update, public employee appointment, and employee discipline, dismissal, or release. The board will now go into closed session until 7 p.m. Oh, is there any agenda items? I don't think so. Public comments? Seeing none, we'll go into closed session.
What is that?
That's not. They don't have to put it up there.
We do have a comment. If I could have Miss Corinthian Bates. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Corinthian Bates. If you could take the podium, and I'll give you 3 minutes. Sure. Thank you. Sorry, I got your gender wrong.
Thank you. I think it's too late. It sounds like it's there.
I hope not, because I don't have allergies. So I'm afraid I may be getting a cold.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
That's all right.
Hello, everyone, Mr. and Mrs. Leaders of the college. Thank you for allowing me to speak before you go into closed session. I'm still trying to protect to see if I can still work here. Again, it was proposed that I'll be released today, and I'm here to defend basically the paper that I handed out to you. Shows that this individual actually lied during arbitration and comments denying that these incidents took place. The third page, which I thought was very violation of my rights during all of this process, colluding with my coworkers saying that I'm going to come to the college and shoot the college up after I was removed from the college from actual saying that they'll be looking into this situation. The other problem is during that time of 2017, you have Charlotte Moore not only investigating and questioning on this, now she's only deliberating and also giving testimony during my arbitration, which I find is a violation of my rights and the due process of this nature. And the reason why I'm not having my union, because my union was sidebarring with me and colluding that I was a threat. Even at my last hearing that I was here speaking, she was sitting sidebarred and saying, oh, you know what happened in Florida, you know, you're a threat. You know, this is a badgering of me as an individual. I love my family, people as individuals. This is a plague on my character from overuse and abuse of power, as far as I'm concerned. Ruben loved very much, and I'm being told that, you know, during these meetings, he wanted him out, he wanted him kicked out, or wanted him fired. Is far from the truth. I've only talked to this man to try to better, so he didn't get caught up in a catch-22, because I know what he was probably fired for. Mishandling money of the school is what I brought to Stewart prior to all of this. He's saying I'm a threat to the college when really I testimonied to him in meetings, letting him know that there was a possible arbitrated funds because I had people telling me that he was using retirement funds for overtime. Also letting them know about the nepotism that's going on, not giving me a fair chance in the workplace because you're hiring family members and cousins and relatives and married people. Also bringing that there's violations in contracting, in the due process of contracting. You know, this is why I'm a threat to the college. There's no threat from me other than me speaking about fighting for my rights and fighting for the employees and the staff members that go to school here because they're not being treated fairly when you're working in the L building, which I brought up in a grievance, which was ignored. Charlotte Moore was above that too, which I felt like was a violation. And colluding with Charlotte Moore constantly and covering up of Don Ekman and their constant threats of write-ups and continuous badgering of me in this workplace when I do not but try to care when they have put people's health risks in here in the L building. In 2010, when Van Pelt was in order, and then with Reuben Smith in order, again, they do it again, when nobody should have been in those buildings during those times of construction. And thank you very much, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Any other comments this evening?
I have no other comment requests.
Thank you. The board will now go into closed session. Tonight in closed session, by a majority vote with Trustee Chin Lau abstaining, voted to accept the hearing officer's decision to take action for final employer termination for one employee effective February 22nd, 2018, and to approve the insurance and notice of this action to the employee. Thank you. We'll now move into open session, and welcome to today's meeting with the quorum being present. The meeting will come to order. Ms. Barnard, would you call the roll, please?
Thank you. Dr. Anthony Fellow,
Here.
Mr. James Osterling,
Here.
Mr. Hoyt Hilsman,
Here.
Ms. Belinda Brown. Here. Ms. Sandra Cheng Lau,
Here.
Mr. John Martin,
Here.
Ms. Linda Wah,
Here.
Ms. Zena Rad.
Here.
Thank you. Mr. Austin, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Sure. Please stand. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. This is the time for introductions and recognitions. Dr. Verdine, do you have any?
Yes, it gives us great pleasure today to introduce all the new faculty members that we hired over the summer and who have started teaching at Pasadena City College, joining the great family of Lancers this fall semester. So we will have new faculty members, new managers, new administrators, and I'm going to ask Dr. Juni to ask the deans to introduce the new faculty and administrators from their division, and then we'll have the administrators.
Okay. I didn't see, is Sonia Wurst here? We'll start alphabetical. So Sonia, if you want to go first. This is Sonia Wurst, the interim dean of business and engineering and technology.
I would like to introduce Lee Lay. She is our businessman, a full-time faculty member, comes from us from UC Davis, Master in Applied Math, and is teaching Business 14A, which is finite math, Statistics 15, and Business 14B of Business Calculus. We also have three other full-time members that are joining us that we're not able to make. Brandon Sauer, engineering, Stephanie Marshall, who is a business law paralegal, and Surin Sahaki, who's actually teaching right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
And so since I said I'd go alphabetical, I'll fill in for Dr. Olivo and introduce Armando Duran, the Dean of Counseling and Student Success.
Good evening, everyone. So with me today, we have Grace Kim. She's our new career education counselor, formerly CTE. Kim. Stephanie Martinez, general counselor, and Shadiz Amirian, general counselor.
Dean Duran, I think you also have a new director of international students? Oh, okay.
Okay, and so if I could introduce Dr. Osaqueda, who is the Dean of English, and she will introduce her faculty.
Good evening, everyone. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Kristen Kaz. Want to raise your hand? She comes with us with a master's in English and Rhetoric and Composition from California State University, Northridge. And Carolina Espinosa, who comes to us with a master's in English from California State University, Long Beach, both in the Division of English. Thank you. Not present this evening because they're busy teaching their 1A classes are Dan Staylor with a master's in Rhetoric and Composition and Literature from Cal State Pomona, and Dr. Allison Parker, who comes to us with a PhD in English from Arizona State University. So thank you.
Thank you.
And so now Dr. Dean Douglas, who's actually 3 different people tonight, and so if he could start to introduce the new faculty from Kinesiology, Health, and Athletics.
I knew Kay would come up first, so I was ready. Dean Miller is out ill today, so I'm going to be replaced as the former Dean of PCC. I would like to introduce Pat McGee. He's no stranger to PCC. He's been an adjunct faculty here for 5 years, and he is teaching kinesiology, and he as our head baseball coach.
Yay.
Well, no, our baseball team.
And so now, Dr. Douglas, can you be the Dean of Math for us?
Happy to be Dean Starburst, who is away at an equity conference this evening, so she couldn't make it. But she has 4 new faculty. Did Raylan make it in? No, okay. So Raylan and John Mathewson I'll introduce first. John is the handsome gentleman on the left with the attorney, well-manicured beard, who has been an adjunct for the last couple of years for PCC and is now moved into full-time position.
Beautiful.
And if you want to see what John is doing outside of PCC, you might find him doing trail maintenance on the Mount Wilson Trail. He's an outdoorsy kind of guy. Okay. As I said, Raylene Garcia, she couldn't make it tonight, but she is also an adjunct, has been a former adjunct faculty, is now transitioned to full-time. Edward Ham is right there, and this is to show you how PCC reaches out in all different directions. Edward we poached from UC Berkeley, and he is now teaching here at PCC. And to his left, your right, is Renee Johansson, and she's a high school teacher that we poached from the local high school area and also Yolanda. So we're very pleased to have all 4 of these new faculty.
Wonderful.
See them when we can as part of our staff.
And so now, Dr. Douglas, would you like to be the Dean of Natural Sciences?
He hails from Cal State Northridge. He has a master's in biology. And ask him when you get a chance about what the raw day was all about. No, the rap day. What was it? Reptile Amphibian Appreciation Day. The rat day. Jason's all about that. Last but not least, on the right, on your right is Gidget Tay, and she has a PhD in organic chemistry from UCI. She got waylaid on the East Coast for a couple of years teaching at Rockford University in Illinois, but we published her from there, brought her back here to the West Coast, where she's
I'm fully charged down.
He hates it when I say this, but if you want to see her work, just Google dance chemistry on YouTube, and you'll see some of the work that she's doing. Dance chemistry.
Having grown up in Chicago, we don't consider Rockford, Illinois, the East Coast. It's west of us.
I think so. And so from Performing and Communication Arts, Jim Arnwine.
Oh, look at him.
First of all, I'll start here. Edom is new with us as an adjunct, television and radio, specializing in radio. And James Patrick has been a one-year temp last year, now has the tenure track position. And he specializes in television operations. And then our new speech pattern, they're very sociable, so they've already mixed in with all the other. We have Victor Cornejo, he's been with us as adjunct for a number of years, and a specialist in both general speech communication and forensics, and new with us this year, Brianna Brody, who's hired for a forensics position. They're already hard at work and have their first tournament this weekend. Yes, and you're driving the van. I'm driving the van. All right. Good, thank you.
And last but not least, Jeff Archibald, the Dean of Social Sciences.
Good evening, everyone. We have 4 new faculty that we are welcoming into the Social Sciences Division this year. One of them, Dr. Marcus Green, in Political Science, is teaching on Wednesday nights, so he could not be here. But our other 3 are. To my immediate right is Dr. Patrick Brock, who is teaching in psychology. He's teaching research methods and statistics for the social and behavioral sciences. And speaking of poaching, we poached him from Glendale Community College, where he was full-time faculty last year. So you would sense that theme here. Further on my right is Dr. Danielle Graham, who is also in the Department of Psychology, and she is teaching statistics and research methods in psychology as well. We also poached her from our friends at Chaffey College, where she was full-time in their Office of Institutional Effectiveness for 5 or 6 years. So there's a little And then immediately behind is Ozzy Mekatarian. Ozzy is in the Department of Political Science. We poached her from everywhere. She was adjunct at Woodbury University, Pierce College, and ELAC, but she also was a full-time journalist for many years in print and television media for various Armenian publications. So we're really thrilled to have them. We've got a great diverse set of new faculty. And
That's beautiful.
So we got everyone, right?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Bell, do we have any administrator or manager from CEC?
We do not.
No. Dr. Story?
Not here tonight.
Ms. Beam?
I'd like to introduce Kathy Hansen. She is the Director of Human Resources, and she's been here since July, and we've got her very busy. She comes to us from UCLA Extension, and she'll be helping HR through the selection process of the superintendent president and being an all-around helpful person for all our departments.
Mr. Chair, may I make a comment to a special shout out to the speech and communications team? One of your colleagues, Mark Whitworth, was my speech teacher 30 years ago at Rio Hondo, and I was a debater there. So I just wanted to say a special shout out to the speech and communications faculty. Welcome.
Thank you. On behalf of the Board of Trustees, I'd like to welcome you all to the Pasadena City College family, and I wish you tremendous and great years of success in your careers. And we're happy to have you. And please stop by before or after the meetings and just say hello to us. We would appreciate that. So thank you. We'll now move in. Oh, if you want to leave too, you can leave.
They're leaving.
They're smart.
Especially the journalist who's been through all these. Thank you. Our first item of business this evening is to approve the agenda, and I would like to make one change, and that is to move Dr. Dean Cully up after the consent calendar is approved this evening for an update on the Presidential Search Committee.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Student trustee?
Aye.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. This is the time for public comments on non-agenda items.
So we have no public comments on non-agenda items, but we have 2 comments on agenda items, which we will call in order as we reach those agenda items.
Thank you very much. At this time, we'll call for approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees for August 15th, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Hilsman, a second by Mrs. Brown. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Student trustee?
Aye.
Unanimous. Okay, we will move into the consent items, and the first group of consent items deal with student activities and student affairs and approval of various things dealing with students. The wishes of the trustees?
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion from Ms. Brown, a second from Mr. Osterling. Further discussion? Student trustee?
Aye.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. The second group of consent items deal with instruction. The wishes of the trustees?
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion from Ms. Waugh, a second from Mr. Hilsman. Further discussion? Student trustee?
Aye.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. The third group of consent items deal with business items. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
We have a motion from Ms. Waugh. I'll second it. Further discussion? Student trustee?
Aye.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. The third or the final group of items deal with personnel items, so the student trustee will not be voting on these. The wishes of the trustees?
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion from Ms. Brown, a second from Ms. Waugh. Further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. We now turn to some important action items today, particularly dealing with the budget. And the first is a presentation of the proposed... Oh, forgive me, the presidential search, so we can get you home. Dr. Dean Carley, why don't you give us an update on... I start going here and I can't stop.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. So, as you all know, our deadline for being considered in the first review by the committee is this Friday. We have had a very active recruitment period and spoken with many interested people, and we have a pool of applicants thus far that is of the size and quality that we would have anticipated, and so we're pleased with our progress so far. The first formal meeting of our search committee will be this Friday, an active agenda that starts at 8:30 and I believe is planned to be ending about 4:30, so it's a full day. Begins with an orientation. We'll then have a cultural competency session specifically designed for our search, our superintendent president search, and then we'll have a working lunch and move into the preparation of the materials that we'll use in our selection process. So, quick summary to say that we are on target in terms of our time, and the results so far have been very positive.
Any questions or comments?
So what room will be meeting in? Have we discussed that?
Pardon?
Where will
Being on Friday.
I know.
Where?
Room?
We're in the circadian room. It's downstairs, right almost here to our immediate left, the first floor. We'll be keeping an eye out for you, Paul, for everyone. Circadian room.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to the action items. We have a presentation of the budget, and then we have a public hearing, and I believe we have some...
We have a comment on the first on item H1, and could I call Mendy Montez? Ms. Montez, you'll have 3 minutes.
Do I speak into this?
Yes, you do.
Yes? Okay, great.
Hi, my name is Mandy Montes. I'm the editor-in-chief of The Courier, and I just wanted to come and talk to you because as of right now, the journalism department doesn't have a budget. So all of the things that we do, for example, we go to journalism conferences, JCC, Journalism Association of Community Colleges. We have 2 conferences in the year. We don't know where those get paid from, and we submit those fees, and we don't have a budget to help us maintain our website. And we also don't have a budget to pay for other fees that we need to pay for. So I really urge you guys to put in or allocate budgets for us, because even though we're a small department, we're still as important, because the news is always, it's everywhere, and it's important even today. And as student publications, I think that it's really important to keep the publication alive, because we cover stuff on campus as well as outside, and we serve the student body and you guys as well, and it's really important that we share information and resources to those on campus. So I just really hope that you guys can take us into consideration when you talk about your budget funds. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any others?
Not on this item, no.
Okay, thank you. We'll now have a presentation of the proposed budget, and then we'll go into a public hearing.
And thank you for allowing me to present on the 2018-19 proposed budget for adoption. The presentation tonight will include an overview of the state budget as it relates to community colleges, along with the new funding formula. We'll look at cautions and concerns related to the budget. Then we'll look at the general fund budget along with transfers, all the fund budgets, and finally look at a snapshot of the funding level at PCC that's included in the budget. So first we'll begin by looking at the statewide budget as it relates to community colleges and PCC in particular. The statewide budget, it's a very strong budget. It's driven by strong economic conditions that the state is currently experiencing, higher revenues at the state level, which are flowing to K-12 and community colleges and education in general. For community colleges, we see in the budget COLA that was signed into law by the governor at the percentage of 2.71%, and system-wide for all 72 districts within our system, that comes to $173 million. PCC will receive $3.6 million of that. There's a new funding formula. I'm sure everyone has heard of it. Included in the budget is $270 million for the new funding formula. And what those funds are, it's to provide funding to districts who would receive less with the new formula, and also districts, because there's the 3-year hold harmless clause, part of the phase-in period, and also funding for districts that will be receiving additional funds because of the funding formula. PCC is one of those districts. Because we have high attainment, high completion rates, we'll be receiving an additional $6 million as a result of the new funding formula. And in a slide to follow, I'll provide more detail on the new funding formula. There's the new online college, which has no impact to the PCC budget, but system-wide it comes at a price tag of $120 million. $20 million of that is ongoing. $100 million is a one-time budgetary expense. There's the California Promise Program, which is costing the system $46 million, and to PCC we'll be receiving $1.2 million. There's also an ongoing funding for full-time faculty in the amount of $50 million. We'll be receiving $1.4 million. So these are ongoing provisions included in the statewide budget. There's some one-time funding, restricted one-time funding in the budget, and the first is scheduled maintenance instructional equipment. So system-wide it's $28.5 million. At PCC we'll be receiving $116,000. And I just want to call this item to your attention because in the past, we've received a significant higher number than this. Last year, we received $1.6 million. So this is a decline we're experiencing, and this is for scheduled maintenance projects to our facilities and also instructional equipment for equipment in the classroom, such as computers, projectors, classroom furniture. So this is something that we're addressing with general fund dollars to make up this shortcome. Capital outlay, there's $50 million included in the budget, and these are capital projects of which we will be receiving $1.6 million for the U building working drawings. Part-time faculty office hour funding in the amount of $50 million, and we'll be receiving $509,000 of that amount. So I wanted to provide some explanation related to the new student-centered funding formula. In the past, we were funded primarily based on access. So the number of students that we serve, that would be our base. And we were provided funding for a certain number of students based on our historical performance. The new funding formula is moving in the direction of a performance-based model where a component of our funding will be received based on the number of degrees attained, students completing certificates, transferring, and also looking at the socioeconomic conditions within our district. So the new formula has three components: a base allocation, which is similar to the old formula where we're funded based on access. So this year we're receiving 70% of our funding based on the base allocation. Next is a supplemental allocation based on the number of Pell Grant recipients, Promise Program recipients, and AB 540 students. And the third component is the student success allocation, and that's where we're receiving funding based on the number of degrees awarded, number of students transferring, certificates, and there's a lot of items within this section that administration is paying close attention to, and we're strategically looking at these items to see how we can not only maximize the funding, but maximizing how students are receiving services and support to complete their programs, which is the intent of the model. So, for example, we're going to be receiving funding for students who complete 6 units of math and English during their first year. If a student completes 3 units of PCC and 3 units at another community college, neither institution receives funding. So a lot of things like that we're looking at, and we'll include that in our enrollment management planning. Just for an example, the students who we receive funding for, students who complete 6 units of math and English, will receive half the amount of a student completing a degree. So that's how material it is for us to pay attention to these different parameters and ensure that we're providing the appropriate services to our students. It's a 3-year phase-in period for the formula, and you can see on the slide, year 1, it's 70% base allocation, supplemental allocation 20%, and 10% for the student success allocation. And after the 3rd year, it becomes a 60-20-20 split. But again, PCC is already performing very well in these areas, but that doesn't mean we can't improve upon what we're already doing, and we're taking a closer look at what we are doing and how we can make adjustments. Some cautions and concerns related to the budget. There's some economic and political uncertainties. California's economy is extremely strong, as is the nation's, but we've been in a recovery for a number of years, and our economy is cyclical in nature. So there are, Department of Finance warnings that we could be coming up in a recessionary period. However, there's no signals yet. There's political uncertainties related to the election coming up in November, could have an impact on education. There's PERS, STIRS increases. You can see in the chart where the employer contribution, the contribution that PCC makes, are increasing significantly, all the way up to 22-23, where we'll be contributing 19.1% for every STIRS payroll dollar earned, and 25.3% for every PERS dollar earned. And what this means dollar-wise, By the year 22-23, our general fund expense will grow $6 million compared to where it was in 17-18, just because of the increased contributions. But what we're doing to address those is we've established an irrevocable trust. We transferred last year $4 million for the PERS STIRS component into the irrevocable trust. And this is all really creating a savings account to help us meet the needs in the future. It's not a permanent ongoing solution, but it is helping us go out within the next few years and still have a balanced budget and have reserves in place that meet our needs. The other post-employment benefit liability, similar to the PERS STIRS, we've set up an irrevocable trust. Last year we transferred $10 million into the irrevocable trust to help meet those needs. And just a quick update on the irrevocable trust. Last year we transferred over, in late June, $14 million to the irrevocable trust. And in the month of July, earnings on that were $160,000. That amount would have earned in the entire year held at the county $100,000 or less. So in 1 month, we've already experienced higher returns than we would in the entire year. And that's so important because what it does, it limits the draw or reduces the draw on the general fund, so we can use general fund for educational purposes. So it's very important. Last item on the cautions and concerns list is U-Building. So the U-Building is a 100% funded project by the state, $60 million project. But a 100% funded project excludes certain items. So the state does not pay for furniture, fixtures, and equipment, and the state does not also pay for cost escalations that are not included in the original proposal. So at this time, we're estimating those escalations in the cost of FF&E to be in the neighborhood of $10 million. But we have a 5-year projection where we have a strategic plan to meet that $10 million requirement for the U-Building, and we can do that with general fund dollars. So this slide, it's a snapshot of our general fund budget. So it's the total revenue and total expenses agree, so it's a balanced budget, second year in a row that we've had a balanced budget. Total revenue of $169,583,000. The largest revenue component is state apportionment, which is coming in at 84.3% of the revenue. And the second largest revenue component is non-resident tuition, which is coming in at almost $12.2 million, or 7.2% of our budget. And it's very important because not only are non-resident students enriching the diversity on our campus, but they're also providing a definite financial benefit. On the expense side, total expenses, again, agree to total revenue. Largest expense item is salaries and benefits, which is almost $145 million, or 85.4%. It's a large number, but really a very respectable percentage, 85.4%. That's exactly where we need to be. In the past, PCC has trended up above 90%, so to be in the mid-80s it's a good place. But again, we have increasing health benefit costs, which will impact that number, and along with increases in PERS and STIRS, which will also drive that number up in the future. The last item I want to call to your attention on this schedule is the other outgoing and transfers. So that number is $4,936,000, and I call your attention because the next slide I'm going to show where those transfers are going to. This is a schedule showing where all the transfers included in our budget are going to and coming from. So $4.9 million from our general fund. You can see where those funds are going to. The largest is capital outlay fund, where we have $3.6 million. Of that $3.6 million, $2 million is earmarked for the U-Building. The other $1.6 million is for other ongoing college-wide projects. We're also transferring out $3 million from our Fund 69, and that's our contingency fund for PERS and STIRS, and we're transferring $2 million into the irrevocable trust earmarked for OPEB, and $1 million in the irrevocable trust for the PERS STIRS. And again, this will increase the earnings and also provide funding to meet the obligations that we know will be coming. This slide shows all of the funds of the district, what the beginning balance is, and the beginning balance is actually based on our closed books for fiscal year 17-18. So you see that our total of all of our funds is $76.3 million. And you'll see all the revenue in the different funds. Our revenue is over $250 million at $263 million. Then you'll see expenditures for each fund, transfers, and you'll see the ending balance. So our total ending balance projected with the budget is $66 million. And it is going down $10 million from where we are at the beginning of the year, but it's a planned decrease because we have Measure P, which has $5 million. That's fund number 42, and we plan to fully utilize all of those funds this year. And we also have capital projects where we're spending significant amount of money. The last slide shows a snapshot of our budgeted positions, and it shows 2 years of history. So you'll see academic positions, non-academic positions, and total positions. So you'll see from 2016-17, we had 872.6 positions, and we've ticked up to where we are included in this budget, 925.6 positions. But I'd like to call your attention to 2 lines, the academic managers line and the managers and supervisors line under classified. Both of those numbers have held constant since 2016-17. So while we're growing our instructors, our classified staff, we're holding the management lean at the same number. Before I open it up to questions, I wanted to thank the staff who contributed to the budget this year, Hedva Weingart and Lakana Finney. And I'd also like to thank the helpful insight and input from our Budget and Audit Committee, the board members on that committee, Belinda Brown, John Martin, and Jim Osterling. I appreciate the input and thoughtful comments that are provided. But I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Sturry, Ms. Wah?
Yes, thank you for this report, Dr. Sturdy. It's really excellent. I'm so happy to see that we have gone below that 90% mark on the salaries. It's always something that kind of made my stomach turn a little bit. So I have some questions and some comments. I guess, let me just ask with a few questions. So on the digital college, are we going to track the number of students? And I hadn't heard this on the state level either, but I was just curious if we're going to track the students who come from our own district and go into the digital college. Will that be, have you heard any discussion on how that's going to be tracked?
I haven't heard anything at this point. I don't know, Dr. Verdian, if you've heard anything, or Terry, Dr. Junie.
At one point, it was if they are our students and they're taking classes over there, I think they get the apportionment and we don't get anything, but something like that at some point.
That's not with the digital college. That's with the current virtual college.
Yes.
That's the way it works. But the digital college, that hasn't been specified exactly how that's going to work at this point.
Okay, I'll be at the BOG next week, so maybe that'll come up. So I do want to make a couple of comments, and I've made this before. So I know that performance metrics, coming, no matter people like it or not, that's what legislature is requiring, and I do believe in performance metrics, as long as they're the right metrics and we really look at the unintended consequences. So I've made this statement before when the funding formula came out. And I think it's important that we look at how we collect the money and we maximize our ability to build revenue. But I just want to caution that the metrics also really need to be focused on the student success and the student needs of our community. So I would hate to see us in a position where we're asking a student to get 3 degrees because that gets us maximum money and then they end up having to stay another semester. So one of the comments too is the Chancellor's Office has formed a committee to really look at the metrics. And I just want to say that this is not a firm stake in the ground. So we know that the metrics are put out. We know they're going to move. And we're going to continually adjust it. So I just want to caution our college and other colleges to just be careful as we form our own programs to maximize that revenue and our attainment of goals, that if it shifts, we also be agile enough to make that shift so that we're not too firm in the ground. I know education sometimes doesn't move that quickly, so that's just really a caution. The other comment I wanted to make is, so I know that we looked at, the comment was made that if you have a student who takes 3 classes in one college versus 3 classes somewhere else, that we're not really getting all the credit. But one of the things that got discussed at the state level was really to look at success of the students as a regional outcome versus looking at college by college, because we do know students will go from place to place. And I don't know how that's going to play out. I think that will come up in some of the funding formula metrics. And so Trustee Jaffe from Santa Monica College and I are the 2 trustees on that task force. So maybe if we just keep an eye on that, and then also, I appreciate any feedback from our college that will help us, and that could be feedback then that we could move to the state. The other, just a very general question on the budgeted positions. I know I always get this question, and I always defend our position, but how many full-time versus adjuncts? So do we have, and I know we're required legally to keep a certain percentage, but people always ask me, and I just say, we always adhere to whatever we're legally required to, but I don't know if we ever have that report, or if there's a report card that shows what that percentage looks like.
The way the state does that, the state controls it by telling us how many full-time faculty numbers we need to have. But the number of part-time faculty, we have as many as we need to teach all the classes. That's the only way the state uses to control that 75-25, which it was initially called. Okay, that is controlled directly by the state. We have no control on that at all.
Okay. So if I look at these as full-time numbers, then I know automatically that 25%. 25%?
No, it's not. We're not at 75-25 here. We are. Do we have the exact number on that? What are we at? It varies year by year. It varies.
I can calculate that and give it to you later. I don't have it right this second, but I'll gladly provide that to Dr. Verdian so he can provide it to the board. The idea of it is that we're moving toward 75-25, not necessarily there yet, and there are few, if any, community colleges in the state that are actually at 75%. But our faculty obligation number every year is based on us moving toward that number.
Okay.
But I'll get that information and provide it to Dr. Verdian.
Not a rush. I was just
A
curious.
small fact that maybe you need to know is that we have currently the highest faculty obligation number for a single college in the state of California.
Are we ever going to resolve that?
No, because there are only few districts that are in that situation, therefore it is not in the interest of the other districts to support us in resolving it.
Just for clarity, the numbers on the chart are full-time faculty.
Full-time faculty.
Correct. So the adjuncts, however many,
yes,
are
As
in
needed.
addition to
correct
the numbers on the chart.
The adjunct also has to do with how many of the sections are also taught by our full-time faculty as overload. So the number of adjunct faculty may go up and down depending on whether our full-time faculty are all teaching 2 or 3 sections as overload. If our full-time faculty don't teach overload at all, there will be a significant increase in the number of adjunct faculty at that point. Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Hua. Mr. Osterlin?
I have a quick comment and then one question. And the comment that I'd like to make, I'd like to reiterate the same comment I made at our recent Audit and Budget Committee meeting, and that is this is a really complicated budget because of the way that the buckets come in for funding and how the money is spent. And Dr. Storti, you and your staff do an outstanding job of taking all this complicated information and presenting it to us in a simple, understandable way. And I, for one, as one trustee, really appreciate that. And then for my question or point of clarification, I'd like to go back to slide number 5. And when you were going over that slide, I thought I heard you say that the STRS PERS expense is going to increase $6 million between now and the last fiscal year on that little chart, which is 2022-23. And the bullet point on your slide says it's going to go up that much annually. So I just wanted clarification. Is it a $6 million increase over the life of the chart, or is it a $6 million increase per year, every year?
It's going to ramp up each of the years going out. And when we compare our expense in 17-18 to what our total expense in 22-23 is, there'll be a $6 million difference.
So not $6 million per year, but $6 million total.
It's going to gradually reach the $6 million mark.
Okay, thank you. Not as bad as I feared.
Thank you, Mr. Osterning. Ms. Chin-Lau?
Sure. I have a question on the irrevocable trust. Who manages the trust? Is that done internally or externally? And if it's done externally, what is the selection process of the firm that manages the trust?
We use a firm by the name of PARS, and they work with a lot of K-12 institutions and also city agencies and K-12 institutions. They have a very large portfolio of clients that they work with. And the selection process that we went through to select the firm is we did an RFP, and we had 2 firms that responded. We had interviews with the firms. Trustees were invited to those interviews. We had a scoring chart that we used, and a determination was made to go in the direction of PARS.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions?
I do.
Ms. Brown?
Yeah, so basically I enjoyed being part of the committee, and something that we didn't really talk about just a few minutes ago, but the 5-year projection that we have adopted, which I think it's a good thing. A lot of the assumptions, or part of the assumption, is based on the idea that we're going to continue to retain a high number of FTEs and, of course, comply with the new funding formula, which, from my perspective, PCC has been doing a great job because, and it's reflected by the amount of dollars that we got when we compare to other colleges. So it will lead me to believe that PCC is really taking care of business. We are on the right track. But the assumptions for these students are the same ones that people are trying to get more students. So even though we are on track, I think it's very important that PCC continue to work as hard as they have, because, yeah, we're doing good, but everyone now is going to be competing for the same things. We have a great number of international students, which is helping our budget. And like I said, as reflected in the numbers, we got $6 million additional dollars. So I think it behooves us to, first of all, credit the administration for a tremendous job for seeing ahead of time, okay? And I personally want to thank Dr. Verdeen and his staff for preparing a very well-balanced budget, and for the diligence, for his vision, and for engaging with all this before it even fell out. So I think he's done a terrific job, and I'm sure going to miss him, but, you know, life goes on. So my mom always said, you always try to leave a place better than when you first came. I think we can say that PCC is in such of a better position now than when he first got it. So thank you, Dr. Verdeen.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Any other comments? Thank you, Dr. Story.
Thank you.
This is the time for public hearing on the proposed 2018-2019 budget and fund allocations. I declare the public hearing open. Any comments? Seeing none, I declare the public hearing closed. Item number 3 is adoption of the proposed 2018-2019 budget and fund allocation. And Mr. Martin, I thought you as chairman of the committee.
I'd be delighted to move approval.
I'll second.
We have a motion from Mr. Martin, a second from Ms. Brown, who's also on that committee. You guys did a great job. Further discussion? Student trustee?
Aye.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Very good. The fourth item today, action item, is adopt the annual 11 financial report, fiscal year 2017-2018, and the budget report, fiscal year 2018-2019. I don't think, do you need to say anything? It's the annual wishes of the trustees.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion from Mr. Osterling, a second from Ms. Brown. Further discussion? Student trustee?
Aye.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. The fifth action item today is the parking citation payment plan program. Dr. Verdian?
You know, in October 2017, the California Assembly approved AB 503 that required all institutions of higher learning to have a payment process for parking violations. Whenever there is a parking citation and there is a fine to be paid, we need to have a plan that will allow people to pay by installments if that's what they can afford. So what we are doing right now, we have a citation payment plan, and we're asking the board to approve it.
Move approval?
We have a motion from Mr. Hilsman, a second from Ms. Waugh. Further discussion? Student trustee?
Aye.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. The final action item this evening is the appointment of Measure P Citizens Oversight Committee. And you have those in your package,
Agenda,
I
yeah.
should say. Wishes of the trustees?
Mr. President? I'd like to move approval, but I would like to add the name of Maria Morgan to represent trustee area number 6.
Thank you. Good, so everything's covered.
I second the motion,
As amended.
as amended.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. Further discussion?
Yes.
Ms. Chinlao?
Given that I'm been newly elected to this board, I have not had a chance to revisit who my representative is going to be on this committee. So I would like to take this opportunity to revisit whether or not Jeff Wang is going to continue to serve as my representative.
Of course, we should do that.
Trustee Chen Lao, the appointment is for 2 years. So you are the trustee for Area 1, and when Mr. Jeff Wang's term expires in 2019, then you will get to appoint somebody.
So we're stuck with each other.
You're in love with each other.
I think Mr. Wong is very competent.
Okay.
Year goes by fast.
Sure. I just thought that I would have the opportunity to,
You will.
certainly, yeah. But I appreciate the clarification. Thank you.
Thank you. Student trustee?
Aye.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. We now move to information items. We've already had the address on the presidential search, and now we'll look at the building U.
We do have a comment on this agenda item from the public. If I could
Sure.
invite Deborah Wood-Martinson to the lectern.
This is the presidential search?
No, this is the building U.
The building U.
For
Yeah,
building
okay.
U?
I was just getting clarity.
We already did the search.
I know he did, that's why I was asking.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Deborah Wood-Martinson, and I am here with my fellow science colleagues to speak about the agenda item regarding the replacement of the U building. We're here to express our concerns about this project. The architectural plans currently under consideration have been submitted without natural science faculty signing off on the plans. They have been submitted in spite of serious concerns about whether the building as proposed will adequately serve our educational program just with its infrastructure, lab design, and everybody is in total agreement that the building is insufficient to accommodate the current size of our science program, let alone future growth. We met with administration on Tuesday and were basically given the somewhat unpleasant choices of accepting this clearly inadequate building for our needs or having no building at all or a very long delay in any possible building that could accommodate. Administration, I appreciate it, was honest in saying that what really needed to happen was that state funds needed to be matched by PCC's funds to build a building that could serve our needs, and could give no good answer as to why that was not on the table for consideration and implementation. Also, administration did not help us resolve the, okay, who's going to get short straw here? And be told after 6 years already in the temporary science village that now some of us are going to have to stay in that village for some indeterminate length of time with nothing in place right now in terms of plans for what would be necessary to build a second building. If we can only get a one-for-one replacement building, what would plans in place to build a second building that could accommodate us now, let alone in the future? And I just have to speak my concerns about the shocking lack of vision. 6 years we have been in temporary housing. I was hired here in 1991, before a library, before a stadium, before either parking structure, and I, as a new faculty member, young faculty member, watched a vision process to put a master plan in place to develop facilities that would serve our students, including my own 2 children, who both earned AA degrees from this college. And we are shockingly letting down current students, let alone future students. So if it appears that we basically have to accept this is the building that we have to settle for now, right? 2 things. What will be the participation process where we can be guaranteed that at least the replacement building that goes up adequately meets the educational program for some of the faculty lucky enough to land there? And more importantly, what will be the plan in place, reasonable plan, so that those of us who are still in the science village will know there's some sort of end in sight, and this doesn't look like a permanent solution to a problem instead of a temporary solution. I walked past a great big poster plastered outside, and I hope that you are hearing all of this in my voice, both as a faculty member and as parents of children who are alumni from here. A big poster that says, dream, come, do. But as far as our science program is concerned, we are not providing the facilities by which that can happen, nor apparently is there any vision process in place for us to understand how it will happen. And if we as science are experiencing this, who else on campus may be? Because I am part of a whole community college, not just over in a little corner in the science village. If we don't address this, then students that we were referring to being competed for by other colleges will dream and they will go and they will do at other facilities that are better equipped to accommodate them. So I just want to leave with 3 things here. Recap: a vision, a guaranteed participation in what's happening with whatever building is constructed now, so we get a voice. Will this serve our current needs for labs, for classrooms? And accommodation. What will be told to those of us who are left in the science building, kind of hanging out, wondering, how many decades will we be there?
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Can I make a comment on this? Yes?
Sure.
Okay, I just...
I usually don't, but go ahead.
Okay. I just wanted to make a comment that as a student in STEM and as I talk to the students in STEM, this issue is brought up quite frequently. And Ms. Wood, we really appreciate the work you're doing, and yeah, and your passion is really helping the students and everything. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you. We're going to have a presentation on this. Why don't we proceed to that?
Dr. Story?
Yes, we have representation from GKK Works, the architectural firm that we hired. David Hunt and his team will be presenting an overview of where we are with the U-Building project. So the U-Building project, before they begin, it's a project that was submitted to the state as an initial project proposal a number of years ago. And it was submitted to the state as a Category A type project. And Category A projects are projects that are considered safety or emergency replacement projects. And whenever you submit a project as a Type A project, you're limited. It's purely a replacement project. So the size of the building that we currently have, the replacement building has to be the exact usable square footage. You can grow in the total square footage for things such as ADA compliance if you need to add square footage for that. But otherwise, we're under very tight constraints with the size of the building that we can put in place. And because it was submitted as a Type A project, we were selected as the #1 project when the statewide bond passed. And we have had our architects, GKK, David Hunt, Vince, and their team, and I have had several conversations with the Chancellor's office trying to get exceptions to the size of the building, and we have not been successful in doing so. But we have been successful in getting some lenience with the design of the building. The proposal that was submitted to the state included 1 elevator. So the current U building has 3 elevators, but the plans that were submitted with the IPP had 1 elevator. We had to jump through loops with the Chancellor's office to get approval to add 2 elevators, and now we have at least 3 elevators the same. So we have 2 elevators for students and staff to go up and down the building, and we also have a service elevator for things like chemicals that need to be brought to different floors of the building. So we've worked very hard with this project, and although it may not meet all of the needs, it will meet a large percentage of the needs, and we still have the Science Village in place that can be utilized for growth that we've experienced until we have other funding sources, such as a local bond that could facilitate funding for another building. But that's just a recap of where we've come and where we are currently. And we hired GKK Works last year, and they spent their first year preparing preliminary plans. And the second year was signed into law by Governor Brown, which provided us $1.6 million. And GKK has begun work in creating the working drawings. And I know they sent out several meeting announcements today inviting faculty and user groups to provide input into the design of the working drawings. And the intent is to have the working drawings completed by the end of this calendar year so they can be submitted to DSA and allow approximately a 6-month review and approval process. But with that introduction, I'll turn it over to Dave Hunt, which he's the principal architect, and he'll share where we are with the design of the building.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you for that introduction and background. I also have here Mahmoud Marabian, who's our principal designer for the project, and Vince Petito is our project manager. And just a quick summary, this is an update to tell you where we are with the design of the project, and Richard explained the timeline, but just to refresh your memory, January 24th was the last time that I presented in front of you, and what we were doing at that point was showing the building in its schematic design format, and at that meeting we were released to move on to preliminary design. What that meant is we met with many departments and faculty members and spent an inordinate amount of time designing within the confines of what we had been provided to follow, which was the what we call the FPP, the final project proposal, which outlined that the building would have certain number of rooms, certain square footages, and certain classrooms. So what we were able to do is work with the configuration of each classroom to design it to the faculty's desires for the way they would lay it out for the square footage that was approved. So bench types, service types, and these kind of things were developed, furniture types, technology. So we submitted those plans to the Chancellor's office on March 26th, and that was they were checking in compliance with that FPP. And we had tried to take some discretion with some of the design, and we had numerous comments in response to anything that changed. And all of those comments were bringing us back to the approved set of FPP documents. So we had very little leeway. It was hard for them to deny that the 5-story building needed more than one elevator. So fortunately, we were able to get that. So it was approved on July 16th, and we received a notice to proceed by the district on July 27th to move into the most detailed phase of the development of design called construction documents or working drawings, and those will be submitted to DSA in mid-December. So with that, Mahmoud will go through just a handful of slides here to show you, which are very consistent with what you've seen before.
Well, thank you very much. I'm just going to go quickly through some of the process that we had to go through to get the building at this stage that it is today. Basically, here you can see the building in the context of the site. On the north, you can see the library. On the left, you see the main building, so that's the location that currently exists. As you can see, the building itself, because of the constraints that we had, is very square, almost a square. And you can see sort of the appendages that it comes to the building, attached to the building. So those were sort of, as everybody is saying here, it was given to us. So we couldn't do too many things with that building, because as an architect, for us, we needed some flexibility to really create a better massing that it fits better with the campus. So we tried, we went back with 2-story, 3-story, 4-story building that it had a better proportion to the site and functionally would work better, but they were all rejected. So that's basically about the building geometry itself. So then in terms of the working with the contacts, as you can see, the main building here, very beautiful classical proportion, and the composition of a building is a very rhythmic, because it's a classical building. It has a nice rhythm proportion. Because it's 2-story, you're able to do that composition. And when the library came about, they basically followed that direction. And then the newer building, which is the Center for Art, which is totally a different material, different building. So in general, in the campus, you see the different type of the architecture that we needed to take into the consideration. So this is basically a view from the northwest. Just going to come back for this. Let me go through the floor plan. So maybe we go to the next slide.
Next one.
Yeah. So I was just going to want to go through the floor plan and refresh everybody how the building is stacked and what are the program in the building. On the left is the level 1, which is basically we have all the nursing sciences. So this, just to let you know, this was a challenge itself. Mm-hmm. Because in FTP, the nursing science program was divided between 2 different floors. So we were able to go through the end users meeting, and they requested, and we did respond to get accommodating their needs. So we brought everything to this floor, so they're all together in one floor. And that was, again, a challenge for the FTP. The second level basically is all the classrooms and the student clinic, as you can see, and there are some offices. So the building is basically, based on that FPP, is a racetrack corridor. And in the racetrack corridor, you have the middle of the building is all the support facilities, that is, supports the lab. So this is level 3, which is basically biology level. And this has the general biology and some specific other, like zoology and anatomy, and basically all those labs that are typical to the biology department. And the floor plan level 4 is basically biology again, but in here we have some specific programs such as biotech, that a program that actually we were able to accommodate it in this footprint and get agreement with the state. This wasn't originally in that configuration. So that's that floor plan. And the 5th floor is basically dedicated to the chemistry. So all the chemistry with their stock room. So we were trying to at least make sense to what we got in the FPP to make it more efficient. That was our goal. That was our contribution to make it more efficient. So going back to the exterior of the building, as I was mentioning, the existing main building has this articulation that is 2-story, and it has this rhythm. In here, we have not a very long building. We have a shorter building, sort of a chubby building. And then we have to articulate this facade. So you can imagine we tried to make sort of that articulation, so we have a vertical articulation that it has a rhythm, but because of the number of the floor, the proportions, they weren't working. So we came up with this idea, and again, you can see on the right side, basically in the FPP, they put all the core support outside the building. Normally those things are inside the building. So you can see the bathrooms on the right side on the end of the building with a strip window with a clear story building window. So we tried to break the mass. That this is the best we could do really to break the mass of the building. So this is the entrance to the building. And again, we have a canopy very similar to these. They're going to be the same color of the existing building. So that's what we have. And this is another view from the northwest, and an axonometric view. This is the view that is, the library is on the right side, and main building all the way into that perspective. Again, the struggle here is the way the building is stacked based on the PP. You can see there are strip window on the top because there is storage. You can't do too much with it. We at least brought some daylighting. The offices that we opened it up as much as we could for a daylighting, and articulate the facade sort of in the same tradition.
So I think that's it for the presentation, and any comments or input.
Yes. Well, thank you for doing your best within the constraints. I'd like to have a little colloquy here about. I know this is something we've talked about over many, many months and probably a year now. I'd like to understand, and maybe Mr. Storty could fill me in on this. It defies common sense in many ways. Okay, let's just start with that. And I'd like to understand the role or the jurisdiction of the Chancellor's office over this kind of a project, because 6 years ago is not today, and whatever was prior administrations, whatever was planned, education moves forward. What is the conceivable rationale for not granting some kind of variances here to meet what are, the needs of our students?
That's an excellent question, and I'm glad you asked, because you're right, it really doesn't make sense. There's different ways you could submit a project proposal to the state, and the state has specific guidelines how that's done. There's a construction manual for how to request funding from the state. So when you request funding as a Category A type project, emergency replacement project, the way the state looks at it is, okay, we're providing funding to replace the building you have, replace that square footage. There's different ways to ask for a building. So there's different categories. You can ask for a building, and Category A requests receive top priority because it's an emergency replacement project. You can request at a different category for growth. You can say, okay, well, we're growing our program, so we need a larger building. So we either need to add on to our building or build a new building that's larger, but that receives a lower priority than a Category A type building.
All right, so just
So-
on that point, so their point to us is, well, you asked for it for safety concerns, you moved to the head of the line.
Right.
You can't change the rules in the mid.
That's
midstream.
exactly what it is. That's exactly what
and
it is.
we actually had conversations with the Chancellor's office. We said, you know, we'll provide the added funding if we can make a larger building. You know, we'll come up with the funds at the college level. Can we do that? No. And it was an adamant no. The response we got was, you can pull the project, you can pull it, and then resubmit the plans, but you're going to drop to the bottom of the list, and you're not going to be a Category A. You're going to be a different type of category, which would receive a lower priority. In the meantime, the bond that was passed by the state was a $9 billion bond, $7 billion for K-12, $2 billion for community colleges. That's going to be exhausted very quickly with the number of projects that are being approved. So the likelihood of another bond being passed in the state, Governor Brown definitely did not support this one. So, you know, it's the state is trying to push the obligation to the district level to have districts pass local bonds to pay for their own projects. But the $2 billion won't be there, and when will state funds be available for another project? 15 years, maybe, if that?
So just to interrupt, so the determining body for how this money gets spent is the Chancellor's office, and they're the ones who created these buckets, like the safety.
Right, right.
Okay.
We have to add one thing here. The state wants it to be a level playing field for all the 73 community college districts. So that's why there are those categories A, B, C, D, E, and so on. If you go in as A and then you say, you know what, then you are not playing according to the
Yeah, I
rules.
understand
You are
that.
trying to cheat the system.
Yeah.
So that's why the state is very strict on that.
Yeah. So just one more follow-up. The concerns about the inadequacy of the building in terms of serving all of our student needs and the continuation of the Science Village, which I know is a matter of concern. Do you anticipate in a master plan that we might develop, a facilities master plan, which we're actually beginning to develop, do you anticipate that if we would float a bond, for example, in 2020, that there would be resources in that bond for developing adequate facilities for, and what would that?
Yes. We actually have an RFP out right now for consultants that will help us develop our educational master plan and our facilities master plan. That closes on September 21st, and we're putting together a committee that will evaluate the responding firms and select a firm to guide us through the process. But the idea is to have our educational master plan and our facilities master plans updated by the end of June of 2019, and that will inform us as far as what our facility needs are, which are driven by our educational requirements and needs projected out into the future. And I can tell you right now, we have a significant need for either new or renovated facilities, and our programs have grown, our facilities are aged. You know, this is PCC, one of the top community colleges, not only in the state, but in the nation, and we're serving almost 30,000 students. So, I could see easily, having needs for close to $1 billion of construction projects, and this would be one area to build another building to complement the U building replacement.
Yeah, and I'm assuming that when you hire these consultants, that the faculty will be involved at an early stage, because we've heard the concerns, and we've heard them over and over again, actually.
Absolutely. I mean, faculty input is extremely important. The faculty have the direct connection with our students. We put a call out for faculty representation, along with managers and classified staff and students
And
to serve.
trustees also.
And trustees also, to serve on the committee that will evaluate the proposals from the firm that will help us with the educational master plan and the facilities master plan.
And
We wanna
just
be
as a
his-
final thing, I'm assuming that our elected officials who've helped us in various ways over the years, things have reached the end of their rope in terms of what we can do with the chancellor's office. I don't know if you can answer that one, but
As far as the Category A type project?
yeah, I mean, it's a tough. It's
It's-
tough. Yeah, I don't think there's much political weight you can.
We've gone through it in so many different angles, and as Dr. Verdian said, I mean, we submit it as a Category A.
Yeah, they've got a
and-
point. They have a
and,
point.
you know, if we say, oh, okay, we want to change and go,
no,
we
I
receive high priority because it was a Category A.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Osterling.
Let's see. First of all, I do want to thank the faculty members that came here and expressed their concerns and frustrations. And I understand those frustrations, that we are constrained if we're going to take the Category A funding. That's the conditions that it comes on. And I would also remind all of us that even though this facility was first in line for the bond issuance, there was a point in time where we were only going to get funded half the cost of this building. And thanks to trustees and administration lobbying our elected officials and them putting pressure on the chancellor's office to do right, we at least got back the funding that it should have been, which was the full funding. I just want to offer that as context. And then I'm absolutely going to defer to the faculty and the design professionals on the functionality of the building and the layout, because you folks know better than we trustees what facilities you need and how they should be laid out. And I'm glad that you're making your wishes known on that matter, again, within the constraints that we have to live with to qualify for the Category A money. I do want to comment on the form of the building, and my comments, I will be a broken record from the last time we had this presentation. I realize that we have constraints from DSA and Category A, and I realize that the massing of this building is taller than some of the traditional buildings that we had, but I would still encourage us, even at the late stage that we're at, that we do our absolute best to try to integrate this building better into our existing built environment, and I'm referring specifically to the main building, Building C, and the Shatford Library. The main building, an excellent example of a historic form, and the Shatford Library just being a incredibly beautiful contemporary version of the same. And again, I recognize you're dealing with different massing and so forth. I'm not an architect, but I am a real estate developer, so I've dealt with these challenges for many, many years, and somehow, some way, I feel we could do better with the material selection on the exterior. And I just remind ourselves that this is the eastern gateway to our campus, in the same way that the C building and the library and the mirror pool are our northern gateway. And it would be tremendous if we could somehow, some way, get a better integration with those traditional architectural forms on an eastern gateway as well. And I do understand the challenge.
I appreciate those
Yeah.
well-informed comments, and certainly we'll do our best with the time that we have left and the flexibility that we have to integrate some of whatever we can to get it closer to your desire there, and that's a commitment we'll make.
Thank you.
Ms. Jin Lau.
I have two comments. Number one, as the parent of an 8-year-old and a 4-year-old, I hope we could get this building built and replaced before they start PCC. So I'm with you in terms of certainly understanding the need for the board to have a vision for our facilities plan and for education plan all together. And I think it's a very astute strategy to combine both. And I also echo Trustee Helsman's comment on getting the faculty involved as early as part of the process. And certainly when we talk about enrollment and we talk about competitiveness, or facilities should be one of those areas where we recruit the students when they, and students now are very savvy about where they want to go, how the buildings look like, what are the technologies and equipments that are part of the building. So to me, it is very imperative that we pay attention to how we structure and how we frame these buildings in a way that will attract, students globally as we talk about a global future here at PCC. So I appreciate your comment and the efforts of my fellow trustees to get more faculty input involved.
Thank you. Mr. Martin.
Yes, thank you. The short version of what I'd like to say is to strongly support what Trustee Osterling said. Just to cut to the quick, these panels on this side remind me of a 60-70 building, and it just seems totally out of place with the rest of the iconic and timeless architecture in which it's placed. To give you a little longer version, when I attended school here, we attended classes in bungalows which came from the Santa Anita Park, which were used to intern the Japanese. My mother-in-law was one of them. And then were moved over here temporarily, and temporarily is a term of decades, not years. And as an early trustee, my number one concern was the vision and upgrade of this campus, the old stadium building, which ran when the stadium ran a different direction. I fortunately was short. I could reach up and touch pipes as I would go downstairs into it. My taller basketball alumni would bump their heads if they weren't ducking. So between bungalows and what was here before, I've been around a long time. I was on the board where we selected the architectural firm that picked the library, and it was a competition where different firms brought in different models. And the board at the time said, this is the model that we want, and we want to go with this firm, even though the other firm was the one that had designed our master plan. So I feel like I've been part of a rejuvenation of this campus over the last several years, and I am just sorely disappointed the way this one looks like a 70 building in the middle of classic timeless architecture. So I think Trustee Osterling's comments were more eloquent and softer. I am irate inside. I mean, I understand the constraints, but I'm telling you, this is not it. For me, this is not it. In the last 10 years, my life assignment, and the last 15 years, has been to develop a sports park for another organization, a 12-acre sport park, and to rejuvenate another campus. Spent a lot of time in a lot of facilities, analyzing a lot of things, and I didn't feel this way until I got this assignment. But there is a feel to architecture, and I'm telling you things that you know better than I do. So I'm saying this to everybody where I'm coming from. There is a feel that you can't articulate that says and communicates something to you wherever you go. I'm always amazed. I recently went back to my to UCLA where I graduated. It's been a long time since I've been there. Never ceases to amaze me when I walk across the campus. I feel like education is flowing into me. It's just a personal thing, and again, maybe because that's where I graduated. And when we created this sport park, we spent an enormous amount of effort in the design, finding the right architect and looking for elevations and layouts that created a feel that supported what we wanted young people to experience. And so when I look at this building and I look at what we've done so far, and I think we've done a masterful job of creating a feel that says legacy, that says timelessness, both in respect to tradition and to the future. And I think we've designed buildings and captured on the timelessness of C and D and E with the library and some other things to tell our current students that they are part of something big and important that can motivate them in their lives. And I just don't see this picture. And I'm looking specifically at the west facing, us looking at it from the C building towards it, those squares. I just don't get that feel. I don't get the timelessness, and I'm afraid 10 years from now when your children do come here, or 20 years from now, they're going to say, oh, they built that so 20, late 20 building, the way I'm looking at a 60 or 70 building. So I am passionately asking you to rework those panels, to bring it back in to what we and I have spent 39 years trying to develop for this campus, for our community, and for our students.
I just want to add that I agree with both of you. Armand Sarafian was a friend of mine when I was a young journalist, and I came here to interview him many times. Then when he went to Laverne, and I've always detested that building. It just doesn't fit into the campus. And so what John just said, we need to get something that's architecturally unique to PCC, I think. So thank you. Okay. Do we have our next item of business? And thank you for being here. Our next item of business is the dual enrollment memorandum with Temple City Unified School District. Do we need to?
We don't have to approve this, but as usually, we have to present this to the board 2 times. This is for information. As you know, we recently concluded an MOU with PUSD, and you did approve it at the last board meeting. This is the first reading of an MOU with Temple City Unified School District, and at the October board meeting, we are going to bring this for action for you to approve it. And if you do have questions on this one, we would be very happy to answer them, but they are exactly this. It's exactly the same MOU that we have with PUSD right now.
Any questions? Okay. The next item is the Board of Trustees committees, which we've put in order. I think this also will come back in October for approval or not.
This is not an action item. It is your purview as president of the board to make appointments. So,
if you don't like your appointment, please see me. We'll talk. Okay.
I'll see you in the parking lot.
And then finally, Superintendent President's report.
Thank you very much. And as you know, this is already the 3rd week of school, and I'd like to give you an update on our enrollment. As of this morning, we have 29,331 students on campus. That's about 550 or so fewer unduplicated headcount than we had the previous fall semester. 61% of the students are part-time, 38% of them are full-time. These are the data as of this morning for this fall semester. 26% of them are in district, and 74 out of district. And last year, for the year 17-18, it was 19% in district and 81% out of district. 3% of the students are international students, 52% female, 47% male. 4,743 of the students are first-time students to Pasadena City College, and 416 of our students are also high school students. So those are pretty interesting numbers. Our faculty and staff, under the leadership of Dr. Juni and the deans, are working very hard right now to get ready for the second 8-week classes, because we need to take a look at where students need more classes, and we'll be working hard to offer those second 8-week classes. We have also received notice that PCC will be honored the very first week of December in Los Angeles by the Campaign for College Opportunity. We will be recognized as a champion for higher education. The Campaign for College Opportunity bases its findings on data that are 2 years behind. So the data that are being used right now are the 2016-2017 data that places us in second position for the number of associate degrees for transfers awarded in the state of California. But I want to reassure all of you, next year, when they use the 17-18 data, we have that information already because we monitor that very carefully. We will be number one with close to 1,393 degrees awarded, and the school that will come in second place is the school that is in first place right now, Moorpark College, and they have 1,100 something for 17-18. So this is excellent for Pasadena City College. It shows that we are in a upward climb. Many of you will be very happy to know that we have started a shuttle service between our Colorado campus and Rosemead. There are 3 trips daily, one in the morning, one at noon, and one in the late afternoon. And we hope that our students will take advantage of this service. And I know on the first day we had about 17 riders on the 3 trips that we did. This Friday, our Veterans Resource Center will be hosting the 6th annual Clay Hunt Mental Health Summit, which will bring together practitioners and caregivers dedicated to helping service members recover from mental illness. And we are proud to join the regional offices of the Department of Veterans Affairs in offering this event. If you are free on Friday, please feel free to join us here in Krevling Lounge from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. As in the years past, we will be taking part in the statewide Great Shakeout Earthquake Drill. This will be taking place on October 18th at 10:18 a.m. So students, faculty, and staff across all of our locations will drop, cover, and hold on before performing a full evacuation of our facilities. More information about this will be provided to faculty and staff in the days to come. And lastly, I would like to show you the first of a series of teaser videos we are producing to showcase our career education programs. These videos will help prospective students learn the concrete benefits of these certificate programs. And as you'll see, I think the word concrete is especially appropriate in this case. Have a look. Oops.
PCC offers the most comprehensive construction inspection program in the state. Courses are offered at night so that students can work during the day.
After taking this program, it allowed me to score the second highest score on the entry exam, which then allowed me to get interviewed. That allowed me to move on to the housing department, where I started off as a SCEP inspector. We go into all habited rental units, and we check for code compliance, habitability issues, life safety issues. And this program also specializes in electrical. If that interests you, you can become an electrical inspector, and a plumbing inspector, or a building inspector.
A critical caused by 48% of the inspection workforce going into retirement, with 80% to retire within the next 15 years. And since it's a matter of public safety, there's an urgent need for entry-level and full inspectors nationwide.
It's always good to continually expand your knowledge and to keep moving forward. Within the department, I did a number of different things. SCEP inspector, I worked on a task force, I supervised SCEP units, and within large cities, this program allowed you to go to a lot of different directions.
Now you might want to ask yourself, where else can I spend just 18 months taking classes and then step directly into the middle class? The option that I suggest is the Construction Inspection Program of PCC.
Bravo.
Trustee Sterling always like that. So you enjoyed that program. You talked to us about that program on several occasions.
Who produced that, Raj?
Alex, would you want to share that?
Shout out to the video team.
That's great.
This concludes my report.
Thank you. We'll now turn to shared governance, and Ms. Rojas.
We had a great flex day to kick off the semester. Our morning updates included our guided pathways approach update delivered by a dean and a counselor, and then the chancellor's office vision for success document was also provided to the campus community. And so we're well aware of how PCC plays a role in that important vision from here on out. The morning breakout sessions included sessions for faculty and classified staff, and that's really important, how classified play a huge role in the instruction processes at PCC and student success at PCC. And so we were delighted that there were breakout sessions provided to our classified staff in the morning. They sort of focused on the instructional components of the guided pathways approach. A huge thanks to Jason Robinson, Valerie Foster, the Flex Advisory Committee, a ton of student volunteers who gave up their personal time to make sure that this played out well, and then all of the faculty and staff who facilitated the workshops throughout the day. It was a really successful day. The Senate had its first meeting on September 10th, as well as its fall Senate retreat on the same day. We received great training on just getting to know each other, working as teams. We had a little bit of training on 10+1 items, and the faculty rolled in the shared governance process, and sort of committed ourselves to the Senate Executive Committee goals of increasing assessment efforts on campus and doing a good job of leading efforts on campus, particularly among faculty, to make data-driven decisions in our assessment processes from here on out. And that's something that we know Aspen focuses a lot on, but that's just an integral component of student success. And so that's a primary goal for the Senate Executive Committee this year. And that's it.
Thank you very much. Ms. Ociqueta, Dean of English.
Thank you so much. As Secretary of the Management Association, I'm here representing Carlos Altamirano, who's currently in Sacramento, where he's accepting an award from the Ed Trust as a bright spot on behalf of the college and the Pathways program for its work on prioritizing equity and school improvement and student success efforts. So I'm glad to sit in for him. Recently, the Management Association met with Dr. Verdian, and both parties agreed to bolster support for meaningful professional development for managers, such as the Great Deans Program and Admin 101 for managers. These are offered through the Association of California Community College Administrators. And the last announcement I'd like to make is kind of my own personal plug as Dean of English. Beginning of the fall semester, about 3 weeks ago, the Writing Center opened its doors to all PCC students. This is something that hadn't been happening for about the past 18 years. We now have 2 locations, and our motto is any student, any paper, any subject, anytime. So we're very excited about welcoming all students and assisting them in their writing needs.
Thank you very much. And Felicia Mitchell, classified.
Actually, my name is Maria Bustamante. I work with Felicia Mitchell in the same office. I am the classified alternative representative for the Board of Trustees. And Felicia regrets that she cannot attend today. There's really not much to report at this point from the Classified Senate. So next time I will be reporting a little bit more.
Thank you very much. And Mr. President, Colin Kim, Associated Students.
Good evening. We are having a Club Rush event which has started from Tuesday and is going to be held through Thursday. And also, our Vice President of Sustainability resigned due to her personal reasons, so we are now looking for a new VP of Sustainability, and we're planning to appoint new Vice President of Sustainability by the first week of October. And also, we are hiring associated students and also student large body to hiring committees to join. Okay. We are hiring students to the college-wide committees to participate in our college. Yeah, that's it for my reports. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll now turn to the trustees. Ms. Wah.
Well, You know, I didn't realize that we had the MTA consultant, or not consultant, but one of the MTA employees was here our last meeting when we approved the MTA MOU. And I was really excited because the Universal Student Transit Pass is something that we've all been advocating for our students. So I want to thank Dr. Verdi and his staff for working with the MTA, and I gave congratulations to Supervisor Barger, who has been a great advocate for us, and Assemblymember Holden, who also sponsored the bill. So Assemblymember Holden was quite surprised to know that we had already moved forward. I know a number of other community college districts like Santa Monica have been waiting for this. I wanted to share it with them. So I want to thank you all. And Dr. Verdian, you know, even though this is maybe your last year, you're glad to see that you're just moving things forward. So I really want to appreciate you and your staff for a lot of this. So as I mentioned before, the state is, at the state level, we're looking, the league president, President Moreno, has asked that we look at several things that we need to do to get policies to move to help our students. So one of them is financial aid, and I think I may have given this stat last time, but about $120 million in financial aid is being left on the table every semester. And so one of the questions that I'm going to be asking all colleges is to find out, you know, what does that look like for our colleges? How many of our students are impacted by not getting, you know, by not applying for financial aid? So what are those things that are getting in the way? So the task force is made up of financial aid directors and then several trustees and a chancellor, and I'll be leading that. So I hope that I get input from PCC and our students on how that affects our colleges. The other thing is ACCT will be voting. We'll be having our elections in October, so next month. So I hope that I think we need to approve whoever our voting trustees are who are going up to New York. So I'll be a proctor, I'll be up there, but I think several other trustees will be there. So I encourage us all to look at that, and maybe at least by the next meeting and before the New York ACCT that we select someone. So we'll have probably another 6 people from California who will be running.
The ACCT New York is before our next board meeting.
Oh, so President Fellow, I encourage us to select someone, or I think 3 of us are at least going to New York, right? Trustees Osterling and Hilsman. Are you
I plan to attend, and I will be happy to cast the ballot.
Yeah, I think we get 2 votes for our college. So, and I'll be proctoring. So I think you two ran pretty good.
Did we do okay last time?
Yeah, I think you did okay. Just got to get up there and vote.
All right. We just follow Linda's recommendations. That's what
She's the boss.
That would be a smart thing to do.
Well, I don't know about that, but okay, I'll be proctoring. I'll be watching. The other thing too is I really want to thank Dr. Verdian and his staff on the whole CTE and the statistics we got in this report on the career coach. There was a webinar that was initiated by the Chancellor's office. I had a chance to look at that, and there were several tools, and the career coach I think is very valuable information for a lot of us, and so I think that was really excellent information to get that. And you know, I really appreciated sitting on the Aspen lunch with my fellow trustees, Osterling and Hilsman, and I think many of the questions that the Aspen team did ask us was about the workforce and how we are doing and how that is affecting our communities. So I'm really happy to see so much emphasis put on that. And last but not least, let's see. So I saw Supervisor Barger, and I gave this to Z, and I'll pass this over to Colin, but she wanted to make sure that everybody knew that all of the museums are free every Tuesday for the remainder of September, and she really wants to make sure that our students get out there and really take advantage of free museum days. So I have that. So I think it's not just limited to students, but she wants to make sure. And that's it.
Thank you very much, Ms. Waugh. Mr. Martin.
Just that I'm very appreciative for the shuttle service to the Rosemead campus, and hope we can kind of spread that word, because I know that's been the distance and the traffic pattern has been an impediment for many. So we'll see how this works, but thank you for putting that together.
Thank you. Mr. Hilsman.
Yes, just briefly to let you know that we will, many of the trustees will be attending the training for the screening for the presidential search this Friday. And also, we had a very productive meeting with the newly formed Business Council of the Pasadena City College Foundation, and we got a great presentation from Salvatrice on workforce development and all the things that we can be doing. It's very exciting, and we're going to be expanding the network outwards so to provide internships and other opportunities for our students in career training as they go out into the workforce. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Osterling.
I'm not going to talk about PCC or LACSTA today. My thoughts have been preoccupied with the events, the anniversary yesterday of the September 11th, 2001. Our students that came to PCC directly out of high school were about age 1 or 2 at the time, so this probably isn't seared into their brains the same way it is for us people of a certain age. But it was the largest number of casualties for a undeclared act of war on U.S. soil, and the way that our first responders, police, and fire department responded to that event, many of whom lost their lives trying to save people when those towers collapsed. And it's especially disheartening to learn that actually the number of deaths from the air quality that was in that area, and the first responders, despite that, went to that building, to the buildings after they had fallen down, and to hunt for the living, etc. And now we're learning that more of our first responders are going to die from that than our total casualties from the event itself. So I just want to remind ourselves of that event, and again, just thank our first responders for what they do and the way they put their life on the line to help make our country, our city, our college a better place.
Thank you very much. Ms. Brown.
So just wanted to say that on October 5th, I think October 5th, I will be attending the Hispanic Association of College and University 17 conference in Atlanta. I'm looking forward to that because I'm hoping to gather some experience on how to develop good policies for the Hispanic population, as well as maybe even hiring. So I am looking forward to that. So that will be where I'll be on the 5th.
Thank you very much. Ms. Chinlao.
Conversations has started with the La Cañada School District on a possible dual enrollment, and I'm looking forward to continuing to explore those possibilities. And I certainly like to thank Dr. Veridian and his staff for initiating, to continue to have this exploration to have a dual enrollment with La Cañada.
Very good. Thank you. And our student trustee, Ms. Rudd.
A couple of things. On September 4th, the Student Success Committee held a meeting discussing the rearrangement of the learning centers across campus. There is 2 new centers of 2 new writing centers open for all students, and a speech center as well. The cross-cultural centers and the Association of Latino Employees is holding Latino faculty, staff, and student mixer September 18th, 11:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. And it will be a really great event, and so whoever can come is more than welcome. Club Rush has finished 2 of its 3 days, and the many different clubs across campus have been working hard representing their clubs to the students, so students can be more involved within the school. There has been 5 students appointed to the hiring committee for the president and superintendent search. So, yeah, and also the shuttle to Rosemead campus Monday through Thursday has been a big thing across campus. So, yeah.
Thank you very much. Just one comment, Dr. Verdian. Can we find some money for the poor journalism students.
Yeah.
It is in their budget. It is in the, Dr. June, it's in the budget for, what is it, BAMS, Performing Arts, right?
It is in the budget of VAMS. There was a glitch in the budget for the Courier, and that's because they went to an online format. And so they actually used to generate most of their own funds through advertisement, but the world doesn't pay for online advertisement the way they pay for advertisement in a paper newspaper. And so their advertising revenue has dropped considerably. And so there is an issue actually in being able to come up with the money, but I am working with the dean in that area to be sure that they have adequate funds.
Because God knows we need better journalism today. The worst I've ever seen. Okay. Future agenda items. If not, I would like to adjourn in memory of all those who died in the September 11th terrorist attack on that fateful day. And if there's no further business before this body and there's no objections, this meeting is adjourned.